Unfortunately, today I'm rising to have to debate another closure motion. And since I've been elected, we've seen these come forward several times. They came forward under the previous PC government, and now here we are with the Holt Liberal government. And it is extremely frustrating that there are consequential and very important, significant bills that are not even going to get looked at in committee. Everyone here should feel ashamed of this. This is ridiculous. The property tax reform bill is not going to get have any questions asked about it and have the minister explain and have to respond? That's shameful. The Energy Sector Consumer Advocate Act, I think it didn't even leave second reading at this point. It's not going to committee. We did start to look at the Mineral Resources Act, and I was listening, and it should have been able to keep going, but I could hear the chair having to say, we've got 30 seconds left, sorry, like we've got to wrap up. And that is terrible. That is not good for our democracy. But this is how it works. These really important bills came in very late in the session. So Bill 45, the Mineral Resources Act, came in May 13th. But there were only 9 possible days when we could have looked at that bill in the legislature, today included. And Bill 49, property tax reform, only 7 possible days after it came in May 27th when we could look at it in some way in the legislature. The Energy Sector Consumer Advocate, May 26th it was tabled, only 8 possible days when we could look at it in some form in the legislature. And we didn't look at these 3 significant bills in the way they should be looked at, 2 at all in committee. That's really shameful. And I do hold the government responsible for not bringing their very significant legislation forward earlier. And I do hold the official opposition responsible for reading AI-generated speeches in order to delay, and including some of the prompts. Anyway, and we do have a tool to filibuster, and this was not what New Brunswickers imagine, like a noble filibuster where you're really filibustering to make sure something terrible doesn't happen. We didn't even get to discuss some of these things at all in committee. We don't even know the details. We don't even know the answers to what is happening in some of these bills. And so it's shameful. And could have said the exact same thing with the roles reversed for official opposition and government just a few years ago, Madam Speaker. And so we do see this coming back as the leader of the Green Party and member for Fredericton Lincoln said, it feels like Groundhog Day, and it certainly does. This is a terrible version of deja vu to keep seeing this happen. And the fact that we're here talking about this when likely the Mineral Resources Act would still be up at committee, and it should be, because that deserves time and attention. I want to comment on the fact that we still, despite having set precedent and brought in witnesses a couple of times, once under the previous government, once under this government, I believe, to economic policy, to bring in stakeholders, witnesses, experts, in order to make sure that we were doing the best we could on a piece of important legislation. Despite that, there's not a willingness to do that anymore or right now. Part of the reason being that there's not enough time. There's a worry about not having enough time. Bring the bills earlier, please. It has been chaotic to see these, dozens of bills. And again, many of the bills that had, of course, all legislation is important, but they're not all equally important. There are bills that are very important that are not going to even get discussed at committee, and some that the government would term housekeeping, where sometimes it's a small error that needs to be fixed, sometimes it's making language gender neutral, whatever it is. Those things brought forward right away. And here we are. And again, I can't say it enough times, it is shameful that after New Brunswickers have demanded property tax reform, that we won't even get to ask any questions, not one, to the minister responsible. This is an embarrassment, and it's not the first time, but I'd like it to be the last. Can we do better? Can we do this differently? I believe we can. We have to figure out how to make the priority serving New Brunswickers, and maybe considering that we don't know everything. Maybe the government doesn't know everything. Maybe the government got something wrong. Maybe they missed something. Maybe they need to hear something from the official opposition. Maybe we need to bring in a witness who can offer a different perspective. We can't even ask some of these questions in committee to get some of these details. And so democracy is weakened by this type of process, by bringing in closure, closing down debate, closing down the committee process, closing down the examination of legislation that will impact New Brunswickers for years. And we see that all too often, a year later, 2 years later, the government has to bring an amendment to an act because they missed something, because we didn't do our job in this House. And so I call on every MLA to really consider what we're doing here and if we're doing it in the best way possible, because I am confident that we're not and that we could do better. And New Brunswickers deserve better. We were not elected to come here and read AI-generated speeches. We were not elected to come here and not even ask one single question on important legislation. I urge everyone to really think about how we can do this better, because New Brunswickers deserve a whole lot better. C'est gênant, Madame la Présidente, et il faut que nous considérons comment améliorer et vraiment desservir les Néo-Brunswickois et Néo-Brunswickoises. Il faut arrêter d'être tellement partisan qu'on ne peut pas prioriser les besoins de nos concitoyens et concitoyennes. Merci, Madame la Présidente.